Hola! Welcome to the Two Amigas in Hollywood podcast. We are Lina Sanchez and Maria Angela Quiroga, and we live in Hollywood. Yes, in Hollywood.
We are entertainment professionals in love with this industry, and we want to share our experience and knowledge
And that of our guests.
to help you navigate the Hollywood labyrinth. Hola! Welcome to the Two Amigas in Hollywood podcast. Today, we're repeating our guest is Andrés Montero, who you met on our last episode. We wanted to bring him back because we thought our conversation was cut short because we didn't have enough recording time. And yes, he's a very interesting person and a very interesting professional as well. So thank you so much for coming again. If you haven't listened, please go back and listen to our previous episode to get to know him more. But today we're going to deep dive into his life, his career, and be very specific about some questions we have.
So, welcome again. Thank you, Andres, for being with us today. The last time that we talked, that was the last episode, we ended up our conversation talking about the tips and tricks that you wanted to share to all our community about how to be successful if you want to be in this industry, and how to, be proactive and being a good professional in the industry. But the next question that we have is, so Andres have been working in two different parts of the world. He worked in Colombia for a while in a different role, and then you moved to the US and started a new role. So if you want to tell us your experience working in these two different countries, two different cultures, and two different roles, and pros, cons, similarities, and in general, how was your experience in these different countries and different roles?
Yeah, well, in Colombia, I worked in kind of in different scenarios, but I have to say that really my professional career started with FOSBO, which is short for Fundación Orquesta Sinfónica de Bogotá. And this was an institution that we founded with other friends, but the head of this project was Zbigniew Zając, who he was one of the he was the principal bassoon player of the Bogota Philharmonic, but also he was involved with the conservatory at the National University as conductor, and he was the lead conductor for the student orchestras. And we did a beautiful concert that I did as a student at the conservatory, and then that was kind of like the seed for the creation of this orchestra. It was really important for us, and I think it was very important for the culture in Bogota, especially, and very important for the musicians, because the main thing we wanted to do, mostly is Zbigniew, because I was pretty young when this started. I was still in college. I still had like 2 years or a year and a half to finish my career, my program. So I was still a student. So I was honestly, I was just learning as I was going. So I got invited to this group of people to make it happen, but it was mostly to make room for professional musicians that were, getting out of school from different universities, because before the conservatory was obviously the traditional plays where classical musicians were studying, but now you have different other universities that are getting really high level, and then we were having a lot of professional musicians, and then without much opportunities to work. There was at the time, that was I'm talking about 2008, and so back then there were not a lot of opportunities for work. So anyways, so my as I said before, it was a learning process for me because we started this orchestra from scratch, really. Like, we didn't have much um, experience managing an orchestra. So uh, we started, obviously the base of the orchestra was the student orchestra, and then it was uh, the whole work about transforming that into a professional orchestra. So we had to deal with all the paperwork, and we had to register this orchestra as an institution, and create all the rules, the everything that you can imagine to register a company, right? I mean, this was a non-profit, but you still have to do a lot of work, and it was a lot of just learning process. So I actually did a lot of the administration side of it, from making the contracts to make sure we got all the people to show up for the orchestra. And then the first gig, as this orchestra, as a professional orchestra, was at the Teatro Cafam, which at the time was Teatro de Bellas Artes, fine arts theater, which in many cities they have their own fine arts theater. And so we did the Nutcracker, and then the New Year's concert, who was the first edition of the New Year's concert in Bogota, which was a big deal. And that was like our first gigs. But I was really involved in the administration part. I mean, I was playing piano, the celeste part in the Nutcracker, and then on the New Year's, I was the soloist, playing Rhapsody in Blue with the orchestra. So that was a moment where my career took off. So I did a little bit of this, managing and dealing with people. And then after that, because I was involved in this administration part with the orchestra, then the director of the theater where we were playing, he wanted me to play at one concert, a recital that they had with a singer, and he wanted me to play the piano. And then after that recital, he offered me a job at the theater as the artistic coordinator. That was the title. Because recently the person who was on that position had left, and they were looking for someone to fill in. And so it was a great opportunity, because when he asked me, or when he offered me the job, I was kind of like in the middle of figuring out what to do after I finished my undergrad. And it was an administrative job, because my main thing was piano performance, and then I had this option of having a real job, like office job, 9 to 5, and then with everything, pension, health. So it was like
All
my
the benefits.
first, all the benefits. So coming from, working really hard on something that we wanted to give to the community with Fosbo, but obviously not really getting paid much. Like now it's different. Obviously, I think with the years that has improved, but at the beginning was really rough. Obviously, it was great for me to have a job. So I took it, and so it was a whole different experience, because I was obviously again learning. When I took this job, I was 23, I think, around
And then
22.
also
Very
like,
young.
yeah, super young, but also in the conservatory you learn really like how to play really well. You train on that. You train, of course, on the theory part, but like the administrative part on the business side, it's basically non-existent.
Yeah, no. I mean, we didn't have any business class at the conservatory, um, and I don't know what they're doing right now, but I think it's just really important to have that.
Yeah.
So, and when the director of the theater, Jorge Guzman, he told me in many occasions that that was school for me, being at that job, because none of the things that we were doing or I was doing or I was learning, none of that was subject on any university in business, because there are things that you just learn as you go, from real
During the
life.
process. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, and some from real life examples.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was. I mean, it's funny because the title was artistic coordinator, but but that was on paper, because for the director, he would call me just what was it called, artistic assistant or something like that. And then some,
Okay.
yeah.
And then probably you were doing all the work.
Well, he was very, I would say, he liked to manage everything, micromanaging everything. So he wanted everything to go his way. So I was mostly um, an advisor, So like sometimes he would ask me to, write his speech about the Beethoven symphonies, or or write a draft of the notes for the playbill, or that those kind of things that.
Which, to do that, it's really hard. Like, I've done it for some people at the La Luis Angel Arango. And it's really hard because you have to know about, like, the history of the composer, and then history of the piece, and like kind of a little bit of even theory, because you kind of want to explain the structure of the piece to, like, the audience. So it's like really hard to make those playbill things.
Yeah, and so, yeah, so I was more like an advisor, and also kind of like supervising a couple of projects that the theater was running, and kind of report back about what was going on, and then funny enough, kind of supervising what Fosbo, the place I was working with before, which I was still involved because I'm a founding member, so I was always involved, and I'm still involved with the organization. But it was, at the beginning, it was kind of tricky because, you know, uh, the director who asked me, okay, so how's the orchestra doing? Like, are they playing good? Like, were the musicians
So
punctual? Like, did
really
they start it on?
micromanaging all everything and everyone.
Yeah. So I had to, sometimes if the orchestra, for some reason, rehearsal was not going well, I mean, I couldn't cover it. I had to be honest and say, yeah, the orchestra today is not doing good, or yeah, it's doing great, whatever, whatever the case was. But yeah, it was kind of like a at the beginning was a little odd to be in that position. But I think in the end, both parties wanted the best, so I was kind of like the bridge in between to, I was just trying to make it as easy as possible, from the relationship with the theater and the orchestra. So it ended up being fine. But yeah, it was definitely just an administrative work, and then I was really not getting much time to practice piano, or doing other musical projects. Also because the schedules at the theater were very, very extensive, because activities in theaters usually happen at night, right? The shows are at night, and then rehearsals also usually happen at night. So we had our 9 to 5 or nine to 6, like, office hours normally, but then sometimes we had to stay longer, or I mean, we had to switch between two other people to stay until the theater closed. So, like, if Wednesday was my shift, I had to be first in the theater that day, and then I had to be the last
Were you
until
getting
rehearsal.
paid overtime?
So no, but
Of course.
because it was,
Of course.
yeah. Well, so there were overtime. I mean, because this was CAFAM, which is a very big company in Colombia, very traditional company. They did have overtime payments for um, uh, specific jobs. So, for example, the secretary or the box of office people, um, the messenger or the security guards, or some levels of jobs they did have overtime. But since I was kind of more like, I mean, it was not on the title was not executive, but let's just use it to make the difference. Just the salary was obviously a little higher than
Like minimum wage.
yeah, obviously, yeah. The overtime was kind of covered on the like
On the salary.
the salary,
salary,
but the
yeah.
salary was flat rate.
Okay.
But it was understood that having that job and having that salary,
That you needed to
you
work
have to
a little bit
work a little bit more
more
extra.
and-
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so you told us how was your experience in Colombia in the work area, but now moving to the US, how was your experience getting work here? I'm assuming, if I remember correctly, you came switching from performance to actually orchestrating and doing all these kind of back end work in the music industry. So go ahead and tell us a little bit.
Yeah,
about
so I mean, yeah, I can recap a little bit because there are a couple of topics at the same time, which is I studied to be a piano performer, like classical pianist, lang lang, to be a
that. Me too.
soloist. Yeah. And
We're
doing
not there
We're not there anymore.
That's crazy.
But yeah, and I did, I was able to play as a soloist with an orchestra, which is, when you're in that world, it's always kind of like the dream or a goal, let's say. So that was a highlight, and it's been always a highlight for me in my career. And like I said, that was kind of like the moment my career took off. Because funny enough, like I want to mention this because it's kind of funny. After that gig at the New Year's concert, then I got this super cool gig to play at the Miss Bogota beauty pageant.
What?
Yeah, and it was pretty cool because
And to play piano.
yeah, to play piano because
La
it
chisga.
was it was
What's that?
great.
Oh,
Chisga, well,
chisga.
chisga is slang in Bogota. I mean, I don't know. I guess in,
In
Colombia,
Colombia.
for gig.
Ah,
But I mean,
but
here,
like popular gig, not like the classical music gig, but just like the gig that you go to the TV network and play for The Voice or like the random, I don't know, church
so
musician.
that's
I would
called
say-
chisga?
yeah.
I would say like artistically, a less artistic performance.
Yeah. Or less
Because it
less
could be
hard
like-
maybe.
Or yeah, because it could be
I
like
don't
a
know. Less
wedding.
complicated.
Or,
Yeah, like a wedding, like probably more into the popular
nothing like
music area.
like really professional and complicated.
And and the funny thing is like that's where you actually make money.
Yes.
Because I mean, in
Imagine.
classical music, and especially as a student, like I mean, unless you're lang lang,
yeah.
or like you're not as a performer, you're not really. I mean, it's really hard to make money.
Yeah. Well, now there are much more orchestras in the country, in
Right.
Colombia, for young people and even for like professionals. But yes, La Chisga.
That cheese guy, yeah. I mean, it was fun because it happened because the beauty pageant contest was happening at the Fine Arts Theater where I that was before I started working.
Oh, so the beauty pigeon was there.
Yeah. So the director said, I really want to make something a little bit upscale from it's a beauty pageant or pageant beauty contest. I don't know. Whatever. You guys get it.
Beauty pageant.
This is, I think, it's beauty pigeon, but
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
we can understand.
Anyhow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he was like, no, we have to you put the piano in the middle, something majestic, something beautiful. And then recently I had played the Rhapsody in Blue at the theater, so it's like, and I had the perfect pianist for this. So then he called me to do this gig, and so it was pretty cool because I was literally I was sitting on the piano surrounded by like 8 candidates for Miss Bogota. in swimming in the swimming suit.
Oh my god, so ridiculous. I love
In
it.
bikinis.
Yeah,
I didn't
it was
know this.
great.
This is hilarious. That's gonna be our thumbnail on YouTube, Andres.
Yeah, it was great. And then
For a
Andres
beauty
Cepeda,
pageant.
yeah, and Andres Cepeda was the
Oh,
main act.
nice.
Nice.
So yeah, I got to meet him and hang out with the band, and
Nice.
so that was great. But yeah, anyways, that was not classical music, so but that that paid something. But anyways, I at that moment I was like, I think I did my what I wanted to do as a pianist. I did it. Like, I think after those kind of gigs, I was like, I'm not really looking forward to play all the Mozart piano concertos or Beethoven concertos, which, I mean, I love the Beethoven concertos, but not like, I mean, it's just,
They're really hard.
I mean, they're really hard. And like,
And they're
that
only
was-
5 and they're so hard.
Yeah. And then, then you have Rachmaninoff and Tchaikovsky. And like, I was like, that's just not my life. That's not what I want. And I did a little bit of competitions as well, which is a very important part in the classical world, and I hated them.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, so you realized you didn't want it that life, that in that moment, like after you finish college and you were working, right?
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to be a pianist really. But at the time, and I think we talk about it.
Same as me, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same as you
how
with
was your-
photography.
For me, it started a little bit before I graduated from college because I was already touring with the orchestra like mid-career, and I was getting more into photography by that time. But I also realized I'm not. I mean, I was a fairly good pianist. I cannot say the opposite because I was okay, but I wasn't lang lang. So I knew I didn't have, like, I was realistic enough. I wasn't gonna have this international superstar career, which is of course like the dream of a pianist. And I was also getting a lot of anxiety of performing by myself, which performing with the orchestra and with chamber music ensembles was really nice. I love that. But also it was, I think I didn't kind of accept it at the time, but I was like, it's just really hard to live out of this in Colombia. And also I've been always like, my two sides of the brain, like my very operations part of my brain works fairly well. Like I'm very much like kind of a producer and like, okay, we need to do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, let's talk about something fun like Hollywood, right? So I love classical music. Don't get me wrong. I love it.
But then
And I had
you
fun.
realized
But
you
then
didn't
I
want it
was
to
like,
be a
you know what?
pianist.
Yeah. And then I was already doing because I did all the composition and orchestration classes, which, I think we talked about it on the previous
Yep.
episode.
Mhm.
So I think the moment, and I got this job, real job. So I started saving. If you think about Colombian salaries, I mean, is you
The
cannot
difference
compare.
is
Like, you
huge.
cannot compare what you
Mm.
make as a professional to, a professional can make here, but also like, just to study and to pay all the fees. I mean, even for locals is very challenging. Like locals in the States, it's
Yeah.
challenging to
Pay.
to pay for education. So yeah, anyways, but that the theater gig and the administration part basically gave me some savings that I could use to come here. So and obviously my mom and my family supported me, and they helped financially as well with that, but not 100%. So when I came here to LA, I was so excited. I
Yeah.
was so excited. But I remembered that I didn't have enough money for the whole year or year and a half because I came specifically to do the film scoring program. And it was something that we talk about how I love films, and I kind of wanted to be a filmmaker at first. So it was like the perfect marriage. And then I made it. I made it to LA, and then it was not easy in a lot of things, um, but I was mentally prepared for that. Like I didn't feel like, oh my god, this is so hard. It felt like, yeah, it was hard work,
That you
but
needed that next step.
yeah, but it was like I'm going for the next step. So it
Mm-hmm.
was something I was looking forward to something. So even because I even sometimes remember the thought and not feeling bad when I was working at the campus job at UCLA. I was cleaning the tables and taking the trash out, and I'm taking the trash out, and then here I am, you know on an entry level job, dealing with trash, when back in Bogota I was
Mm-hmm.
wearing a suit and a tie every day, and
Mhm.
and, and just being kind of like the executive,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right?
But
But I didn't feel bad,
yeah.
because I was prepared for that, and I knew that I had to deal with
And
that.
you needed to start from scratch
Yeah.
again,
Exactly,
basically.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's like in Colombia I started to kind of make a name slowly. Not like I was famous or anything, like not at all, but like slowly I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
getting more into the music world. So I knew that coming here was starting from scratch, which a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I feel like for a lot of professionals, uh, that they had like a career, maybe as a producer or as an actor, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're famous in their, let's say in Colombia, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then they want to come to Hollywood, and then it's like you got to start from scratch. It's like
Yeah.
nobody's gonna know you, like the
Even if you're
experience,
super famous in Colombia, no one knows you here. Like
Yeah.
we have seen that
right?
because we know a lot of like famous Colombian people here and no one knows them.
Yeah.
Like so everybody, and we talk a lot about this with Justin and Lina and Santi. We talk about this because one thing we love about being here in the States is that every job is honorable. Like I feel back home, there's these entry level jobs tend to be like, oh, poor you, this job is like not no good. But here, since people work from like 16 years old or something, they are used to working hospitality jobs, for example, or like waitressing or whatever job you need to do. And it's okay. Like you just, it's even better because you learn how to pay your bills and how to save and how to manage
Mm-hmm.
your money from, I want to say, even like 10 years before we do in
Yeah.
Latin America. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that's
Mm-hmm.
super valuable. And I'm glad you didn't feel bad about like starting from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, I just knew that was the case.
I also experienced something like that because I remember when I came here and I was looking for a job. One of Justin's friends told me like I was kind of in the same thing like you in Colombia. Like I was just like I was kind of like starting my career, but I was already making a name there. So for me, it was also like I'm gonna move and literally again starting from scratch, and literally I started from scratch. But then when I was looking for a job, she told me Justin's friend. She told me like you need to start from scratch because you need to start creating your network, and
Mhm.
that takes years,
Mhm.
and I remember I took it a little bit personally that time. I was like, no, that's not true,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's gonna be fast in LA,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no.
And then
Nothing is
well, I
fast.
have been here for 7 years and I'm still struggling.
No, no, no.
That was,
Hey, sorry to cut you off right there, but Lina's a star of the HPA.
oh no.
We were at the holiday
No.
party the other day, like last week or
No,
something,
no, no.
and we were like, "Hi, hi, how are you?" And then Lina came in, like everybody's like, "Lina," and I'm like, "You're the star of
No,
the
no,
show."
no. But I
Latin
just
power.
no. But I just think it's because of the time that I have been there. No, no,
Yeah.
not because everyone knows me. Like no.
But everyone knows
Yeah.
her.
No, no, no.
That's true. That's
but
true.
but I understand like your feelings about like moving here and starting from scratch and like having an entry job level.
Yeah. So So again, still Hollywood not showing up. I was like, "Where's Hollywood, baby? Show it to me." Because it's and well, it's funny because I remember when the first time I was in LA, and you go to Hollywood, right? Actually, the
Mhm.
neighborhood Hollywood, nothing like you imagine. Like I don't
It's
know,
awful. I mean,
it's
sorry to
Well,
say
it's
that,
whatever.
but
No, yeah,
it's just a
it's
B.
it
whatever.
smells a little bit like pee.
Yeah, but anyways, I came to study, so I finished my program, and really the first um opportunity for me was well, actually, before the first opportunity came, one thing that and this might be, and I don't know in other areas in the entertainment industry, so I'm gonna specifically talk about music, and obviously music for films, not
Mhm.
because I didn't come to LA for classical music, so music
Mhm.
for films. um I was before coming to LA, I was under the impression that, oh, LA is where the industry is. There must be tons of companies and, you know, a lot of opportunities to work. And in my mind, kind of dreaming about it, I was like, well, if I'm good, if I do my homework, then I can just go and apply to jobs at Sony and Fox and all these companies, and I'm sure I'll get something. But thinking about the company, and also like coming from Colombia, if I wanted to work in the industry, also I knew that I needed to get the visa. So I was really thinking about it. Like, oh yeah, I'll get a job in a company. They'll get me a sponsorship, and
Easy,
voila,
easy
easy.
peasy.
But yeah, and then no companies really in music.
Mm.
I historically, yes, the studios had their own music department where they would have on staff like composers and arrangers and orchestrators and musicians. Like they were employed by the studio.
Mhm.
So you were, a Fox employee or Sony employee, or Columbia Pictures, whatever it
Mhm.
was
Hmm.
back in the day. And that was kind of like, yeah, like the idea you have, right,
Mhm.
about Hollywood. But in music, honestly, it was more about working for people. You start as an assistant, so and then you start working on a project basis. So nothing like people that are going to give you a full-time job. I mean, it's really, really rare. I mean, I think in film music is more about the network that you create,
Yeah.
and yes, getting in touch with, I would say, not teachers specifically, but more like mentors, like
Mm.
somebody who's gonna
Help you
help
to get
you,
through.
give you the first opportunity. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously you have to be good, you have to be prepared,
Mhm.
you have to know what you're doing. But it's more like finding that mentor, honestly.
Hmm.
And like I get questions a lot from people randomly, just people email me, people that I don't know, but they ask me about working in Hollywood and how to make it. And it's very hard to give you an answer because every person's experience is different, and every path is different. Like, you
Yeah.
ask two different composers or orchestrators, and you ask them how they got here, and like everyone has a different story.
Yeah.
So it's very unpredictable.
Yeah, I was on a screening at the Academy Museum watching Ennio Morricone's documentary.
Mhm.
And it's so I didn't know his story. Like I knew he did the music for a lot of films, but I didn't know he got his start in like the kind of the Wild West films.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And they're so specific, and then everybody wanted to work with him for those specific films, but then it took a while for the Academy to notice him, for like everybody to kind of let him transfer into another type of film. But also it was like such, you know he was in Italy, like he wasn't here, and then
Mhm.
the connection. was like made somehow with a filmmaker or something.
Yeah.
Like it's, as you say, it's like it's not
It's about
random,
connections.
but yeah, it's about connections and
Yeah.
it's networking, and every path is so different.
Yeah.
That's why we started the podcast.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But so talking about companies, then I started looking for maybe places that I wanted to work. And then from Colombia, I knew about Joinkin Music Service, the music preparation company, and I knew that they were working with a lot of the top composers, like John Williams and Alan Silvestri, and just the biggest names in the industry. And it was something that I was very interested, and I thought like, okay, that could be like a good place for me. And I remember going to, well, I didn't call because at the time my English was really bad, and then talking on the phone was
No
very
way.
scary. Yeah, it
Oh
was
my God,
very
talking
Talking
on
on
the
the phone
scary.
is super scary. It's
It's
the worst.
so hard. And then so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go. I looked it up on Google. I'm just gonna go to the office and see what happens.
Oh
And
my
I
God,
went.
that's crazy.
That's
That talking on the phone
crazy.
is a thing for everyone. I was terrified
It's
at the
terrible.
beginning.
Yeah, yeah, me
But
too.
everyone talks about it like so funny. Like, okay.
Yeah. And your voice, the pitch changes. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, hi, how are you? And then when I talk, I'm much in a lower register. It's so weird. We're so weird.
Oh my God. Continue.
Anyway, I showed up to the office unannounced, and then a person comes and
To
like,
which
yeah,
office?
to join Kane
Ah,
Music
Join.
Service, JKMS, short for short. And so I went to the office. Somebody comes to the door and asks me, yeah, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm new in town, and I was wondering if you guys have internships, or if I can apply for one.
But I have
And
to say that was a really good move. Like no one
Yeah.
does that. Like
I would have never
really,
done it.
Yeah, I really admire that you did that.
Yeah, I commend you.
Yeah.
That's brave.
so they
Yeah,
said,
that's very
well,
brave.
just send us an email with your resume, and if we don't, well, they said we don't need people right now, but if we need people, then we'll contact you. So I went home, I sent my resume, and I didn't hear back. So I did a follow up, like 2 weeks or something, and somebody replied the email and they said, yes, we got it, thank you. That's it. I didn't hear from them for like a year.
Ugh.
So after a year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna update a few things in my resume. I'm just
But-
gonna send it again.
Hold on. This was while you were still at UCLA or
Yeah.
once you have graduated?
No. I was still at UCLA. I was probably like maybe 6 months after I arrived to LA. 'Cause-
So, okay, that's a really great tip to start working on your networking and thinking ahead, because sometimes we tend to, okay, I'm gonna
Wait until I finish.
wait until I finish, exactly. And then, but you started way before, which if you would have done it as soon as you finished, then you would have that 1 year gap of not doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything.
you have to, if you come to LA, you have to start right away because time
Is money.
runs out. Like it goes so fast, and it takes time. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of time to know people. Sometimes networking is a strange word, and it's scary. I mean, it's a little scary to do networking because it's
Yeah.
talking to strangers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just basically just getting to know people in the industry. So it just takes time. So the sooner you start, the better.
But I don't know what you guys think about it, but I realize like everyone here is open. Is always like 99 of the times is open to talk to you.
Yes,
Like
they're very
people is
open.
really welcoming here instead of Bogota. Oh my God. Like I don't want to say anything, but here
Yeah.
in California, in LA, everyone seems to be really nice and open, and if you ask them
Approachable.
questions, approachable,
Yeah.
they will answer
Yeah.
most
yeah.
of the times.
Yeah, totally. So, but anyways, I didn't hear back from them. So, anyways, I looked up other options. So I went to, and this is maybe for the people in music, I went to Hans Zimmer's studio because it's famous. It's he's famous to have the studio where a lot of people start working there as interns.
And he's like
And
one of the most renowned film composers.
yeah, I mean,
Like,
I would,
This is the
yeah,
most
he's
famous
one of the,
one, right?
yeah, he's one of the top composers in the
yeah.
business. So yeah, I was like, you know, I have to try, right? And so I went, same approach. I just showed up to the building,
That's incredible. I love that.
and then so
Nice.
it's funny because they don't have any signs or nothing. You just see just a building and that's it. And so I was like, Is it here?" And then uh, somebody uh, somebody was coming out from the building, and I was like, "Oh, excuse me, I just have a question, and I'm new in town. I want to apply for an internship. What do I do?" And so they said, yeah, well, send a resume, but let me get an address and blah blah blah." And then I got some info. Um, so I did send my resume. Well, and I didn't send it through mail or anything. I drove to the building to hand off the resume, but I didn't get the job. So I'm still looking for Hollywood. Some signs, and it was actually through school that we had Tim Davis, who is a composer and mostly orchestrator in town, like big names. I mean, he's the main orchestrator for Christopher Beck, so he did the orchestration for Frozen and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he's done just a lot of big films. Um, so he was a guest at one of our classes at UCLA. But actually, after the class, I didn't approach him because just a lot of people, a lot of my classmates, talked to him after class, and anyways, and I always kind of feel weird, like you go there and what do you say, like. Yeah, you say thank you so much. It was great, and then
I love your
and then
work.
what else? I love your work.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. But what else, right? So I don't know. And then again, I was still not confident with my English, so yeah, I just left. But that same week, I ran into him at a networking event from Netflix, and then I saw him. So that was, and it was, he was just
It
by
was a
himself.
sign.
So I was like, yeah, and I went to him, and he was very nice. We were talking about how people here are very open, so he was very nice, and it was a very short conversation, and I said, how can we get in touch or stay in touch? So he said, oh, just shoot me an email, just go to my website, email me, and just say, that we met here, blah blah blah. So I did, and I just wrote an email, and he invited me without asking. I didn't ask for this, but he said, well, if you want, come to my studio and I'll show you around.
No way.
That's
So yeah, talking
amazing.
about like how people here are more open than in Colombia. So, or well, let's say Bogota, because I'm from Bogota.
Way open.
Yes.
Lin- I'm gonna
And
zoom in on the edit on your face.
and I'm from Bogota.
We all are from Bogota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oy.
Yeah, so I was surprised. So I went to his house, to his studio, and he showed me
Wow.
around, and it was great. That was kind of like a really nice, like, wow, I'm talking to somebody who actually works in the industry. So I'm starting to see some Hollywood signs. um, and, but yeah, it was like a year. And then, I kept in touch with him, but, really now no work opportunities. And there was one time where I was running out of time because my visa was expiring and I needed to find something. And so actually, it was through his assistant Ryan, who was going on vacation, and I met him also at one of the UCLA classes, because now Ryan was a guest speaker to talk about being an assistant
wow.
for a composer or an orchestrator. And so I asked him, like, do you guys have interns? Like, can I apply for an internship? I'm looking for one. And he said, we've never had interns, but just email Tim. I mean, if you know him, just email him and say, maybe, and see what he says. So I did, and it was pretty quick. He said, just come by on Monday. But he didn't say yes, no. He just said come by on Monday, and I was like, okay. So I showed up on Monday.
Another studio tour.
Yeah, and so and the funny thing, he didn't. I got there, Ryan is there, and then he didn't even say hi. He was like, oh, so here's the deal. Ryan is going on vacation because he's had this vacation with his friends from a long time ago. So he's going, but we're in the middle of a deadline, and I need to deliver. And then next week I'm flying to London to conduct this gig. So I need help. Are you available?
And you said yes.
Well, yeah, of course, because that was like really
No
like
way.
like and it's just interesting how like I remember he asked me. I show him when I did the tour. I show him one of my scores arrangements that I've done, so he could see a little bit of what I was capable of, like just by looking at one PDF for like 2 minutes. And he asked me like what software I was using, and it was like the same software he was using. So, but that's it. It's like he never asked me for my degree. I mean, he knew that I was doing the UCLA program, but he didn't really ask me for, any diplomas or do you have a master's?
Yeah.
No, it's like, okay, are you available? And
You
then I
know,
say yes.
in the 7 years I've been here, not once I have been asked
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
any
me neither.
diplomas.
Me neither.
It's just about, honestly, your personality and
The people you know.
the people you know, and also your skills and what you know how to do, and of course do it well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
So
no one has asked about
just start
degrees.
working that day.
So I
basically.
worked for a week, just covering Ryan, and then Tim was going to London. So, I helped him right until the very end before he left to the airport. And I said, thank you so much. But I asked him like, okay, so what's next? So now what? Because I'm desperately looking for a job. And so he said, well, yeah, it was great job. I was blown away. Like you did everything right, and you caught it, everything, like you learned it really fast. So but right now after this we don't have anything lined up. Maybe something in like 3 months, but nothing soon. So if I hear from someone that needs an assistant or something, I'll put a word for you. And let's stay in touch. But yeah, like, I mean, yeah, stay in touch. But obviously there was just nothing going on after that. So again, I was always then struggling and looking for a job. And so then I came back, and I did work for him for the Book of Life, which is a Fox film. And so and then little things here and there. And then that's when he like gave me an opportunity to actually do orchestration on one of the TV shows that he was doing, that he was orchestrating. So that was like my first proper like orchestration credit on a big project. It was, I think it was Revenge. That was it's kind of like it was a TV series.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, it's like very drama, like kind of
In the Hamptons or
yeah,
something. Yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
good.
Yeah. And then I did some orchestrations for Empire that Tim Davies was leading. Anyways, that was when like he gave me the opportunity to actually
Wow.
do orchestrations here and there under his guidance. That's how I started really learning more about the details of the work, especially in orchestration. But if we in words sounds really cool. It's like, oh my god, I'm working on a Fox TV show and really cool stuff. Hollywood, finally Hollywood. But I had to pay the rent, and that was just not enough because like it was
LA is expensive.
it is very expensive, and these are jobs that are happening. Maybe I work for 2 weeks, and then I wait for 2 months, and nothing happens. And so it was really, really tough. So I was always trying to look for for job. And and here's the thing, that I came here thinking that I was gonna be the next John Williams, which I think most composers that arrive in LA, that's kind of like, let's say John Williams or Hans Zimmer, because Hans Zimmer is kind of like the cool kid, like the modern
Yeah.
I think
composer. But
to be honest, everyone thinks we are gonna be the next Steven Spielberg.
correct,
Like, we
Yeah.
all
yeah,
thought that, yes.
yeah. So, but like I was getting these gigs more in the orchestration side of things instead of actually writing music and being a composer. But I loved it. It was because I like that, so I didn't mind. Um, but that was kind of like how the things started to kind of line up for me to work in Hollywood. And then I guess the moment that I actually kind of landed a stable gig was when a friend of mine, who was a classmate at UCLA, just she sends me a message through Facebook, and she asked me like, "Oh, how are you doing? I'm asking you because I'm working in music preparation and we need help. What are you doing? Like, are you available?" And I said yes. I mean, I was desperate at that time, really, really desperate, and I said yes. And so she said, "Great. So I'm working at Joint Ken Music Service at JKMS,
No.
and can are you available? And can you come and work?" And I said yes. And so she said, "Yeah, just call this number and ask for Mark, who's the owner of the company, Mark Graham." And then I talked to him, and he was like, "We're really busy. We need people. Can you come like right
No.
now?" Again, at that time, I already had experience with Tim Davies, so music preparation is also related to orchestration and preparing the parts for the orchestra to record the music. So that was my jam. I mean, it was like, I know how to do this. Obviously, I still had to learn little things here and there, but I had 100% comprehension of what needed to be done, and so they liked my work. And then I've been working there, since 2016.
No way.
That's a long time.
Yeah, now it's
Wow.
yeah, we're talking about
7 years.
7 years, and
Yeah.
Wow,
and
we said
yeah,
it at the
and
same time.
yeah, and then you mentioned like, oh, but now you're working, on John Williams score. So, that's how, because again, I mentioned that JKMS works with you know a lot of the top composers, and I mean, John Williams is one of the top clients at the company. And yeah, I've been very thankful to and lucky at the same time to be able to work on such projects. And talking about John Williams, I've been kind of like enjoying the process from an entry level, because actually when I started at JKMS, I started just taping parts, doing printing, and blah blah blah. And I remember that was in the middle of The Force Awakens, and it was a big deal because that was the comeback of the Star Wars series. Um, Also, kind of like a comeback of a comeback of John Williams, because he had been maybe a couple of years that he hadn't done like a big film, and again, I mean, it was huge, right?
Yeah.
So
You're like, I'm taping parts for this.
I know,
I love
and then
it.
one day, because we get the physical sketches from him, paper and
Yeah.
paper and pencil, because he still
With
writes like
his
that.
handwriting.
I mean, it's like a museum piece, and it's
Yeah.
like on your desk and looking at it, and
You're
yeah,
like, this is
taping.
history in my desk.
Is history, and it was really cool. And then obviously, as I kept working at the company, then I started doing more, like copying parts, proofing parts, until I got to the level that I was able to actually make the score for him, which is basically transferring his handwriting into organized score in the computer, like finalized, and just making sure like the music makes sense, because we're all humans, and this is sketch, so sometimes you can find things that might be a mistake, or sometimes you wonder like, if is this an artistic decision, right? and so there's a lot of thought into it. Like, it's not just like copy and paste from his pencil, but also thinking that how this music is being put in together, and that is clear, and that that's what John Williams wants to hear at the moment of the recording.
It's
And
such a personal thing to know
Wow.
about a person.
I
you know, it's funny
know.
because I've never met him.
Yeah.
I went to a recording session for Star Wars, the Rise of the Skywalker, which was the last movie of the trilogy. And you know, I got to see him at the session, and he was conducting and everything. But I've never met him personally. I never, you know, I've
Yes,
never,
personally, but not talk to him.
I've never
Yeah.
talked to him. But I've seen so many sketches from him. You know, working on all the trilogy of Star
That
Wars.
you already know, like, his
You know,
style.
yeah, it's like I know his handwriting because you
Okay.
have to kind of sometimes.
It's really
decipher,
hard to.
Like, and he uses a lot of shorthand, so he doesn't say full words of things. So shortcuts, right? So, yeah, like kind of knowing like what he wants.
Like what? Like what's a shortcut that he uses?
Well, so for example,
usually?
like he would say instead of say flute, he would put like FLT,
Oh, yeah.
something like that, which at the
Yeah.
beginning is like, wait, what is that?
Yeah.
Right. And then knowing his handwriting, because sometimes it's like,
But
is
that's
that
so
an S?
interesting, you know?
Is that a P? Is that like, or with dynamics, right? Is that
Ooh.
is that a mezzo forte or it's a mezzo piano? You know, is that an F or a P?
Oh my
Yeah.
And it's a big
God.
deal because
It's a big deal because if you make that mistake, then everything is gonna be wrong when the orchestra is recording. And when the orchestra is recording, that's very expensive. And also, as we talked about last time, these musicians just go in and read, and they're perfect, of course. But there's a big team doing all this preparation
Wow.
beforehand. Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. Crazy.
So,
And that's my Hollywood. That's my Hollywood life, really.
yes.
Your recent one, now that it's out in cinemas and Netflix, he worked in Maestro, the one that.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't know, and I'm like, what? You didn't tell me?
Well, we need to share all the credits. Like, we can do it right now. Like, tell us a little bit of all the projects, like most important projects that you have worked on.
So at JKMS, I've worked on a lot of like big studios. So obviously, I have to mention, you know, the trilogy of Star Wars, and Frozen 2. We
Frozen dos?
Frozen 2, Frozen 2.
dos.
Into the
uh,
unknown.
Yeah. What else? What else?
Now I'm singing on the podcast. Forgive me, listeners.
You know, I
Ant-Man and
it's
the
just-
Wasp, you were the
Yeah,
actual
so-
orchestrator.
Right. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, that was Tim Davis orchestrating. But Tim Davis is also a client at Joincan Music Service. So I was kind of double dipping on that because I did some orchestrations, but also working on the music preparation, like making parts as well on that film.
But the credit is different.
Yeah. But I mean, I got credited as orchestrator on that one because I did orchestrations. Because funny enough, obviously, music preparation. If you look at the credits at the end of the movies, we rarely show up or just says join Can Music Service.
You know, we were talking about this the other day because in film, like as the crew, you think because when you see the credits, you think everybody's there and not everybody's there.
Yeah.
And we also have learned, I mean, maybe Lina knew this before, but I didn't because I came, of course, from music, not from the film background. But a lot of these big studios and big companies and big names, they outsource a lot of things. So actually, we were in a film premiere last night, and we realized the studio was outsourcing the coloring of the film to another company. And then there's this huge thing about like, okay, who's getting credited for what? And then sometimes a lot of people just are not even credited.
Oh no, not at
No,
all.
like I think that's something that I think the whole industry should do something about it. But because, for example, I'm not credited by Narcos.
It's interesting
That's
because
really
I
bad.
was I was I don't know this in detail, but and I don't know what's in the other areas, but I know there's a lot of like we only have certain time to show the credits and the space and blah blah blah, and I know most people don't see through the credits,
We do,
but
We do.
yeah, we do. I mean,
of
obviously, I
course.
I do. I
Yeah.
always wait until the last minute.
I'm always looking for the still photographer. Who is the still
Ex-
photographer?
Yeah, exactly. But I think more than nobody's gonna see this is also like just give recognition to people,
And
and
for us, it's
it's
very
very
important.
important, and it's
For
just
us, for our
funny.
visa process, it's so important that we get the
Yes,
credit because it's the way that we can show immigration that, hey, okay, I have been
No,
doing
and
this.
also
It's
like
like
that shouldn't be
important.
something that we need to ask. It's like we work on that project and
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. You know.
yeah, yeah, and but it's funny. I was at a meeting recently for the musicians union because they're doing renegotiation of the current contract to renew
Oh,
the contract.
okay.
So, but anyways, it was brought up that they have to show the credits of the because orchestras. I mean, they play the music of the. You listen to the music on the film, and the orchestra is not even listed. So recently, they've been like, yeah, they have to show the credits. They have to show the orchestra, and yeah, like the people in music, basically. And it's funny that obviously there are other concerns. For example, like in terms of contracts, like health benefits or pension benefits or obviously wages and if wages are gonna be you know um, appropriate for the inflation that we are in right now and everything, right? So and it was funny to hear like somebody said like, oh, credits are you know it to me is not that important because it doesn't put money on my pocket. So
But it is important.
but it is important, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
I
it
know
is.
there's sometimes other things to consider, but I just feel like it's just very important for anybody just to be credited. I know, like as you
Especially in the creative industries, it's too
Yeah.
Especially in the
important.
creative industry,
and I
yes.
know as you work in more and more and more projects, like you start like kind of forgetting about it. But I mean, imagine a big star saying like, I don't mind showing the credits, as long as they pay me. I
No.
mean,
No.
it's part of
No.
their contracts,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of
I
the
mean, it's part of
contracts.
the contracts,
No,
how it
And
shows
every
on the
single,
screen, if it's gonna
yeah.
be like a
and
single, like,
yeah, for me, every single project like gives you something new and
Yeah.
gives you a new perspective of things, and you learn a lot of things in each project. So either way, we all should be created by
yeah,
the things that we do.
Definitely.
yeah,
Can we move on
Mm-hmm.
a little bit on talking a little bit about rates and how, because of course we know to some extent rates from like the film crew and the photography side. But can you explain a little bit of the rates for performing artists and also in music preparation and film scoring?
yeah. So I said um at the beginning, like, where's Hollywood? Show it to me, baby. Where's Hollywood? I
Where's
want to
the
see Hollywood.
money?
Now it's like, I mean, Hollywood. Where's the money? Show me the money.
Yeah.
um, yeah, it is a very complex topic,
Mhm.
and everybody's afraid to talk
Mhm.
about it.
Yes.
But we don't have
here's
to
the
be
thing,
so specific. It's like
right?
an approximation.
Yeah. So composer fees. Um, like I said, even though I've done some composing, I did one feature film in Colombia and just a couple of short films, but definitely composing has not been the bulk of my work here in the States, or let's call it Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot really speak in detail about those rates. I do have say, I want to say that in the creative part, which is writing music, the composing part, it can range from zero
Yeah.
to whatever.
Literally.
Yeah,
And
that happens with photography as well, and I'm assuming directing as well, because it's like, at least in photography, there's like the day fee, let's say, and then but there's also the creative fee and the licensing fee. It's like multiple fees that you need to add up. So I'm assuming for composing, it's like a huge negotiation thing with the
yeah,
filmmakers and
I
stuff.
the only scenario that I was a little bit familiar with is the starting. When you're starting, I mean, obviously, as you get more known in the industry, you had a few credits on your resume, then you have obviously a baggage, and you can say, well, there's going to be a minimum of X amount of money, right? Which I never got to that point in composing and writing. So in writing was always like you're so excited to do whatever that you say, yeah, whatever. I mean, I think and honestly, like, I'm not too against of that when you're starting. And I mean, I've experienced it on my own career, not in composing, where yeah, I've done things for free or for very cheap, but if that's something that is going to help you create a relationship, or is going to help you just to put a couple credits because you really need them, I'm not too against of that. And I think at some point you realize, like, let's say I did just an example, like I did something for free, right? And then the same person called me the second time, and it's free again. And then I said, well, sure, let's do this one for free, but the next one will be, something, right? But if I hear from this person on a third time and it's free again, then I might be like, okay, I think this is really not going anywhere. But what I've encountered in my experience, and again, not specifically with composing, is that if you do a good job, and then the person truly, like, the first time was not able to pay you correctly, if they're good people to work with, at some point they realize, like, oh, this person really deserves a good wage or deserves something better. So then you start realizing, okay, working for that person was worth it at the very beginning, which kind of happened to me, going back to my theater gig, or with Fosbo. Like I said, I was not getting paid anything for my administration work, but it was something that paid off, because that, like, really launched my career.
Yeah.
So if I go back, it's like, yeah, I didn't get paid for this or that, but it really it now it's paying off in a different way.
Yeah.
So that I don't regret doing things that was for free or for very low money. So I'm not too against of that. But anyways, now let's talk about something that I know, which is more like the music preparation part. And again, rates vary a lot. And then I think the most important thing to know is to know the budget first, because in film, the budgets fluctuate so much.
Yeah.
That, if you're working on a film that the full budget is $100,000, well,
Which is nothing for a feature film.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just giving you an example. You cannot expect to charge 50,000 for your job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like,
Yeah, it depends.
It really depends. So you just cannot do that, right? So it's like, all right, so what's your budget? I mean, and if it's something that you can do for the money that they're offering you, then it's fine, right? But if you're working on a $200 million movie, then
That's
it's like,
different.
okay, then my job could be worth, $50,000,
Yeah.
right?
And it's also not that it's not worth that, even on the less budget films. It's just they don't have the money to pay that much.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's worth exactly the same. It's just like you need to be flexible in these budgets sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first step.
Yeah.
Because then I'm gonna say numbers, and then it's like, oh, then next job I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna charge this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to take into consideration certain things, right? Um, so now I've been working on a lot of union films, uh, because they're films from the big studios that they have a contract with the musicians union, so they have to follow the rates. So the union in music, they have, and again, this is excluding composing, because actually composers are not in the union, because composers are something that is creative. So it is established that because it's a creative position, everyone has a different value,
Yeah.
right? So it's like John Williams has a value and Andres Montero has a different value, because for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So it's not like they cannot say like, oh, you must charge this for composing. It's
No.
like it's just a value that you create,
Yeah.
but in music preparation is more, a little bit more technical. So it was easier to come up with certain rates that were,
Right. It's like the crew. It's like more standard.
yeah, exactly. So I've been lucky enough to work on a lot of these projects that handle these rates, and just to give you an idea, and this changes from year to year, because every year they give different rates, but orchestration rates are set by page, and a page is 4 bars of music. So this is more, it's coming from the
An
tradition,
orchestra
an
page.
orchestral page
Yeah.
of score.
Yeah, because I was thinking like piano, and I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
4 bars.
4 bars.
Because back in the day when the scores were done by hand, the template, like the piece of paper that you would use to write the music on, had 4 bars. So it was like, okay, it's that's one page is 4 bars. It's kind of like the standard.
Yeah.
I mean, now with computer, physically you can fit more bars in one page in certain situations.
Yeah.
In some situations you still can fit only 4 bars, sometimes even less.
Even less, yeah.
But-
Depending on
but,
the
you
amount
know,
of
Yeah,
music.
but 4 bars
yeah.
is a pretty good standard. So yeah, even though has been like in computer times, you can put more bars in one page, still you can charge by the page 4 bars. So every 4 bars you get a rate, and it depends on how many instruments you have in the orchestra. Obviously, if you're orchestrating only for strings, or only strings and woodwinds, then it's a rate. But if you're orchestrating for a full orchestra, woodwinds, brass, choir, piano, harp, choir, blah, 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 strings, everybody, the whole orchestra, then it's obviously
Way more.
Yeah, because it's a lot more work to
Yeah.
do. So I mean, when I started in some of the projects like medium orchestra, it could average like $60 to $80 a page. So that's 4 bars of music.
For orchestration.
For orchestration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, but it could go up to 100, 120 per page, depending on the instrumentation. And again, also sometimes it depends on the budget of the film, because even though the studio films have a contract with the union also has different contracts depending on the budget of the film, because it could be like a super, I mean, they have different names, but just to give an example, like ultra low budget film, and I don't have the numbers right now, but it could be something like less than $2 million. So there's a rate for that. So maybe you cannot charge 120 a page for those budgets, but maybe you could charge 80, right? So there's at least some base start on that.
Yeah.
Now, making parts, which is you make the score, the orchestration, and then you have to make a single part for each instrument, right? Because every musician at the orchestra reads their own
My God.
their
In
own
their
part.
own score, yeah.
So the score is a page where
Right,
you
right.
have all the instruments, like flute 1, flute 2, flute 3,
Which is
oboe
what the
1, oboe
director
2, oboe
reads.
3. Right, yeah, the conductor.
Yeah, sorry, the
Yeah.
conductor. Oh my god.
Director en español, el
Yeah,
director.
the conductor.
The conductor, yeah. So because the conductor needs to see everything, what's on what everyone is doing. It's, I don't know, it's like the script, right? But then every musician has only their part. Like if you're the flute 1, you only see the music that you have to play for flute 1. You don't see what the violin is doing. You don't see what flute 2 is doing. You don't see any of that. You only see flute 1.
Yep.
So yeah, so out of 20 parts or 30 parts on a score, and then you start multiplying this, for how many minutes of music. It's just a lot of work. It's just a lot of hours of work. So rates can get a little intricate here because the union has a different rate if it's a flute part, if it's a violin part, because a violin part is usually more complex, has more notes.
Oh my God.
Also, the violin part, you have to duplicate the part to multiple stands, because flute is like
3
mostly
stands.
just three
Yeah.
three flutes and that's it. But then you have 24 violins or something. So
So it's
like,
12.
yeah, so you have to duplicate. So it's like more responsibility to make the violin part. So
And then piano is different because there's different, like the
my
treble and the
God.
bass. Yeah.
and then
I
for
don't know how to speak in
clari-
English about music.
Yeah, and then clarinet is a different rate from flute, even though it's a single line instrument, but it's a transposing instrument, which is a very technical thing to know. But yeah, they just don't read the same the same way the flute reads the music.
Same with the viola.
Yeah, like different
Yeah.
clefs, and so
Ugh.
It's
it
a
just
nightmare.
adds difficulty. But anyway,
It's okay. We just need to dive too deep in that because I can understand it's extremely
it's extremely
complex.
complicated. So just to come up with a number, like it could be something for a relatively medium big film. Again, it could be less or more, but $1,000 per minute of music is something like an average. I mean, obviously sometimes could be more, could be less. It really depends on instrumentation. But yeah, it depends on the amount of music. But if you come up with a summary, that's kind of like the whole budget. It's not like you're gonna get paid $1,000 per minute of music that you do in music prep. This is like the whole
For the company,
for
let's
the
say.
whole, yeah, exactly, for the whole company. And then you have other costs, like you have to take into account the paper and like the physical materials that you're
And
gonna
fees
use.
and like there is a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is kind of like a good starting point. And then obviously if we're gonna talk about hourly rates, it could be something around like $40 to $50 an hour. And again, it depends on
For music preparation, not
Yeah.
orchestration.
yeah
Okay.
yeah.
Well, this is really good to know. It's
Yeah.
weird that you guys charge by the page. So I mean, it makes sense for me, but for people that don't know really about music, it might be weird.
Yeah.
But that's
Um,
so
but it makes
interesting.
sense.
Yeah, I didn't know anything of that, so I think it's super interesting to know that.
Yeah, I hope I didn't bore
No,
a few people with some
not at
technical
all.
things.
no,
Not
no,
today.
no, not at all. But so I think we need to wrap up a little bit the episode. I do think we need another episode with Andres, but we will see. So this is gonna be part 2.
Yeah.
Like with this interview with Andres. So I still think we have a lot of things to talk about. We will see. Maybe we can do something else with you in the future and, have more time to dive into all these things. Because it's
Yeah,
so
of
interesting.
course.
I didn't know like 90% of the things you mentioned today. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. One last question to make your answer like super short.
Yes.
Do you have work-life balance with your family and your work and everything? Yes or no, and just a very short answer.
Yes. Yes. But it's challenging. And I think just the way I've been working with JKMS, we try to work because we work as a team, and so we try to work like office hours. So we try to always start at the same time. Everyone starts at the same time. We have lunch break at the same time, and then ending times, it really depends on how much work we have, but we try to not go like too long if it's not needed. I mean, obviously, if we need to because there's a turnaround or a recording session the next day or even like the same day, well, we have to maybe start earlier, but
Right.
we try to like work like in office hours. Sometimes obviously it's not that easy to just say that you have all the weekends off, but like in my personal case, just working at JKMS, which is something that sometimes might be a little unconventional, but I mean, nobody has really contracts at the company, so it's kind of like technically we are freelancers, but we work as if we were under contract. But because we have that flexibility, like if I have something to do on the weekends, which right now I have a toddler, and so usually on the weekends I need to take care of her, so I'm not available to work. But now I can have that luxury. Maybe 7 years ago when I was really in need to work, then I would say yeah, and at the beginning at JKMS I was saying yes to everything,
24/7,
like available all the time, but we have that flexibility, thankfully.
Amazing.
But I know it's not the case for.
Shout out to
hard.
Jean and Aria, the wife and the baby, for helping make all of it.
I know, yeah. So thank you so much. I think all this information that you share with us today is extremely valuable, and I'm pretty sure everyone is gonna love this information as well. And we just wanted to share to all our community that please follow us on our Instagram and TikTok, the Two Amigas in Hollywood podcast. And again, we are available in all digital platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, and YouTube.
And make sure you follow Andres as well. We will link all of his social media channels and website on the show notes. And thank you for listening again. And thanks for coming
Thank
a
you,
second
thank you.
time.
Yes, we made it.
Woo,
Thank
we
you.
made
Woo.
it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Two Amigos in Hollywood podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, where you can find Spanish subtitled episodes. You can also check us out on TikTok and Instagram. Special thanks to Justin Potter for general tech support and translations, Paula Fajardo for cover art design, Daniel Gonzalez for the original music, as well as trailer sound design and editing, and Juliana Henao for audio consulting. See you on the next one!